everyone, and welcome to our Sidewalk to Science webinar series. My name is Krista Smith. I'm the Senior Manager of Scientific Review here at Komen, and I'm excited to have you here today. So this series highlights Komen-funded research and gives us a chance to get to know our scientists who are working to find the cures and decrease that breast cancer mortality. So today our speaker is Dr. Karen Meneses. She's received Komen funding for one of our more unique programs, the Graduate Training and Disparities Research Program. So what do we mean when we say breast cancer disparities? There are specific populations that have poorer breast cancer outcomes. So these differences can be caused by biology, your environment, where you live, where you work, your race, ethnicity, your age, your socioeconomic status, your access to care. So how do we achieve health equity? This idea that the attainment of the highest level of breast health for everyone. We're looking at eliminating things like late-stage diagnosis, eliminating barriers to screening and fragmented treatment, and using biology to find precision treatments. So what's our goal of the Graduate Training and Disparities Research Program? So the goal is to ensure a diverse pool of highly trained scientists whose research is focused on overcoming these specific challenges. So Komen funds outstanding training programs that are focused on disparities. Our goal is to ensure that researchers are trained specifically in this area. So this program has some unique features. First, students have to go to class. Specifically, they focus on topics such as cultural or biological differences. They're also asked to participate in hands-on laboratory research, community internships, or clinical shadowing other experiences. It's individualized not only for each program and the community that they are in, but also for each student. The students train with mentors who are experts in breast cancer disparities research. We have a very wide range of expertise. Sometimes the challenge is learning to work well with community leaders, and sometimes it's getting very rare biological samples from diverse populations. The mentors are key in the success of these students' research projects. And finally, we gather all of our students for an annual meeting every year to allow these mentors and trainees to network. It's a really small field, so any help they can get. It's certainly great to hear ideas, to think about how to better approach it, and to look at the different work and different approaches that other people are taking. So we're currently funding 16 of these training programs in the U.S. and across the globe. There have been 29 training programs since 2009, and over 100 students have been enrolled in these programs that are specifically focused on breast cancer disparities. So whether these students move on into research positions focused on breast cancer disparities, whether they move into medicine, government service, they are taking this knowledge and this training and bringing that expertise on how to address differences and to create a better and more health equitable system. So our speaker today studies how survivorship interventions are effective for minority, older, and rural cancer patients. She has a Komen-funded grant disparities program, as well as other Komen funding. So our bold goal is to reduce the current number of breast cancer deaths by 50% in the U.S. by 2026. So how do survivorship and reducing breast cancer deaths work together? Better overall health for cancer patients can lead to better outcomes equals reduced mortality. So if we improve a woman's overall health, whether it's concerns such as heart health, breast cancer follow-up, overall just taking care of themselves, we can reduce the number of women we lose each year. So today, I'd like to introduce Dr. Karen Meneses. She's a professor of nursing at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. As you might guess by her faculty appointment, she not only has her PhD, but she also has her RN, and she has an extensive background in nursing and helping patients live better lives. She has an impressive and extensive history of prestigious awards, but when we ask her to tell us more about herself, she prefers to speak about her work and the people and students she serves rather than herself. Her Komen grant, her first Komen grant was in the 90s. She's been working with breast cancer patients for over 40 years. She has the distinction of being one of our few researchers who also has an awarded grant from her local affiliate, and this gives her students an amazing training opportunity. So we are delighted to have her with us today. I'd also like to remind everyone that there's a chat box in your viewer panel. Should you have any questions, please feel free to submit them. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Meneses.
So thank you, Dr. Smith. I'm really delighted to be here this afternoon. I just wanted to make sure that my slides are also being shown. Is that correct?
They are correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. So thank you, Dr. Fot. So in the webinar today, I have 5 objectives. I'd like to describe to you our Graduate Training and Disparities Research Program here at UAB. Dr. Smith gave you a very broad focus on what this program is about, and we're delighted to be one of the recipients. I'd like to share with you and introduce our G TDR scholars who are involved in survivorship disparities research. And then I'd like to go on and talk a little bit about our ThinkWell program, which is a community-based program that has been funded by our local affiliate, which Dr. Smith said has been really nice because we're able to work both locally, regionally, as well as nationally. And then how we're addressing racial disparities through our ThinkWell program, and then some of the implications as it relates to our community. As many of you know from these ACS statistics, there were 252,710 new cases of breast cancer that were diagnosed last year in the United States. This translates to 3.1 million breast cancer survivors in our country, and breast cancer survivors are actually the largest proportion of survivors. There are many challenges, particularly in survivorship, to improve their quality of life, and in other ways to help to reduce their morbidity as well as their mortality. And we see a lot of disparities, particularly among African American women, but also those who are rurally underserved, are young survivors, and those are particularly difficult here in the state of Alabama, where I live. So Dr. Wendy DeMark and I are the program directors of the UAB G TDR program. Both she and I have a focus in cancer survivorship, so our work really gels very, very nicely. In keeping with Komen's bold goal to reduce the number of breast cancer deaths in the United States by 50% by 2026, it requires basic translational, clinical, and community efforts in order to reduce that mortality as well as morbidity. So we're also, unfortunately, in one of the states, Alabama, that also suffers from great health disparities as well as cancer disparities. And so our ultimate aim is to achieve that health equity for underserved Komen communities. And as we address racial, ethnic, age, as well as rural disparities, it's primarily to access as well as timely care. And what we try to do is work with our communities here locally in Alabama to promote healthy living, to address treatment side effects, and ways in which women and their co-survivors can manage them. We focus on maintaining a healthy diet as well as weight and improving physical activity. Those 2 behaviors alone will help to reduce overall morbidity as well as mortality from not only cancer but other chronic illnesses as we age. Here you'll see a photo of some of my graduate trainees. They are my PhD students as well as my BSN undergraduate honor students who have worked with us over the past 5 years, and I'd like to share a few stories about a couple of them. The first here is Tamaya Nolan, and I wanted to bring specific stories to share with you because you have generously supported not only programs but our students, and that's why I wanted to show you some of their stories as well as some of the experiences that they've had with our program. So Tamaya Nolan was a PhD student in nursing, and she just graduated about 6 weeks ago. She is from a very small rural town in southern Alabama. And coming from a small, largely African-American community, Tamaya brought incredible strengths as well as community ties and kinship networks with her. And her skills in community engagement were very critical to our success with one of our programs called ThinkWell, which I'll describe in a few minutes. But for her work, she explored the lived experience of young African-American breast cancer survivors for which we do not have a lot of data in terms of their own experiences. In many ways, she explored their concerns about being young, being African-American, and also several of whom were high risk with triple-negative breast cancer, as well as their concerns with regards to fertility and reproduction after treatment. She's going to continue her work. She just started in January, a postdoctoral position at the Ohio State University, but we do continue to keep her with us on our weekly meetings across all of our students. Here's Jennifer Bale. She's from LA, which we affectionately call Lower Alabama, not Los Angeles. And she too is from a small town. Her story is after working for more than 10 years in the defense industry, Jennifer became her mother's primary caregiver. And her mother did have breast cancer and had died from the disease several years ago. But after her mother's death, Jennifer made very bold changes in her life. She became a certified yoga instructor. She started her own wellness business. And then she entered the baccalaureate program in nursing at the University of Alabama at Huntsville. And then after her graduation, her real passion from her own personal experiences and her desire to improve health within her community, she applied for a doctoral position here at UAB and was very successful. We had a great match. So she is in her third year of her program. She became a doctoral candidate in the fall of last year, and hopefully will be able to complete her doctoral studies in August of 2017. But her work currently focuses on cancer-related symptoms, specifically cognitive interventions that can help breast cancer survivors adhere to cognitive interventions. And we've also had a small pilot study that is ongoing. And the really amazing thing about this particular pilot study is that we have more African American breast cancer survivors who have participated in comparison to our other survivors. So we're really looking forward to hearing some of the results that she has. Here is my third PhD student, Jacqueline Fot. And Jacqueline also, like Tamaya and Jennifer, comes from a rural community. Just hers is a little bit north of Birmingham. She's first generation Vietnamese, and she's the first among her 4 siblings to graduate from college, and she's been very instrumental in helping her siblings attain an education, particularly helping them moving along in terms of their college degree. Her background is in cardiac intensive care, and she too served as one of my honor students several years ago, and her very specific interest is to combine her expertise in cardiac care and taking care of patients with looking at some of the cardiac changes that occur among survivors. As you know, most of our data is primarily from the pediatric population, but we also see more of the studies that actually have focused on breast cancer survivors. She's working on fairly large data sets currently, looking to evaluate heart risk among Alabama residents, and then specifically focusing on data that looks at cardiac dysfunction among women 35 to 50 years of age. Lakeisha Kenderson is our 4th doctoral student. She is in this College of Education. One of the interesting things about her is that her area is actually in Health Services Administration. She is a native of Selma, Alabama, part of the Black Belt region of Alabama, is a co-survivor, and also has a great deal of experiences in working within the community, as has all of my students actually have gained that experience. But she's really focused more on looking at the health outcomes among those who live in the Black Belt. Moving on, just to share a little bit more about how our students as well as their loved ones also get involved in the many Komen programs. I see this as a great opportunity for them to really put what they're learning to work and also to be able to serve our Komen community. Every year we participate in the Race for the Cure, and in the top left you see Sylvia, one of our program director for our breast cancer programs, was running. Jennifer is there, and we really sit and staff the booths. We talk to them about, and those who would listen about our different programs. And on the top right, that was also one of our booths at our most recent Komen for the Cure, Race for the Cure. As Dr. Smith said, we participate in other activities nationally through the G TDR annual meeting, and then our students also continue to participate in the AACR Science of Health Disparities, for which Komen has been a tremendous support. And also locally, again, we participate in our research roundtables where young scientists across the region get together to talk about their work, as well as the Circle of Promise, which is really an outreach for our African American community. So I'm going to move on a little bit now and just talk a little bit about our ThinkWell program, because again it's yet another way in which the local Komen affiliate has provided support for community outreach, specifically to help to address these health disparities that we see among survivors. So here in this particular slide, I just want to bring your attention to chemo brain cognitive changes. We did a focus group in interviews in 2011, 5 years ago, documenting the needs that Alabama breast cancer survivors identified. And so this one stood out as one of the major areas of concern. We went back to the literature to look to see what was actually available, and there are a few, not many, different intervention programs. Here what we decided to do, though, was to develop the ThinkWell program, and actually this topic was very near and dear to the heart of our breast cancer survivors in our community. And oftentimes women think about, well, what is the cause of the dysfunction that I'm experiencing, whether it's in my attention, whether it's in being able to remember, or whether it's being able to concentrate. And so what we thought would be best, rather than looking at what is the mechanistic approaches, here are different ways and healthy living tips to help to improve their cognitive function. So we developed this evidence-based program, education and support, to increase awareness, first of all, of cognitive changes, because many times our survivors are thinking that they were going crazy. And we said, no, that is not necessarily so, that these are changes, and let us help educate you about them and some of the tips as well as behavioral changes that you can consider. In that way, we promote a healthy living to address these changes, and we developed this program for face-to-face delivery. The focus is on nutrition, physical activity, stress reduction, and coping mechanisms. We generally did about an hour of the format. Each of our modules lasted about 10 to 15 minutes, but for the most part they really focused on ways in which women can actually take charge and be able to focus on the health improving activities in their daily living. Getting their physical activity, eating a better, healthy diet, ways in which they can reduce stress, not just at home but also at work, which was also a place where they saw that their cognitive changes were played out. Importance of rest in helping to improve your cognition, exercising your brain, as well as using coping strategies. We also developed a ThinkWell Web version, and it is also on the web. We use multimedia, videos, downloadable tip sheets, event calendar, and links for additional resources. And so the link for that, our program, is there as well. Jennifer Bale, our doctoral student, did an evaluation of the feasibility of using ThinkWell via the web, and here are some of our recent data from October 2015 to January 2017. A little over 2,400 sessions, 1,700 users, over 5,000 page views, and for the most part 70% were new visitors. And so we're actually very, very delighted to be able to share around the world through Russia, United States, United Kingdom, China, Japan, Germany, Netherlands, Canada, and Brazil. It's very easy because Google basically does the translation, and so that other survivors around the world are able to access the information. So what has it been like in terms of our community engagement? First of all, our students, our undergraduate honors, as well as our doctoral students and others, have just really become very, very engaged, and also engaged with our communities here in Alabama. We have taken our ThinkWell program to urban churches, rural communities, or hard-to-reach rural counties in the state of Alabama as well. So this slide shows that we have 67 counties in Alabama. Our local affiliate covers pretty much a little over half of the state, 37 counties. 17 counties were reached through our ThinkWell program. We have to change that. There were 9 urban and 7 rural, and we also had 2 black belt counties included. Here's a little bit of a summary of ThinkWell to date. Over the past 3 years, we had 603 attendees, many of whom, 473, were our survivors and co-survivors, 14 programs in 6 churches. One of the amazing things that we've also learned from our community outreach is that there's about 2 to 3 to 5 times as many co-survivors that participate with our breast cancer survivors, and they too have actually learned a lot about what healthy living means. But in addition to that, whenever we go into these communities, we work very directly with them. We just don't go in and leave. We really establish those contacts. We make sure that the community's needs are identified and also addressed. And so sometimes we'll get screening and early detection requests. Sometimes they'll ask about other cancers. Other times they'll ask about the concerns of co-survivors and if we could address those. And we pretty much try to incorporate all of their recommendations and their suggestions so that they have a community that's really going to have a program fitted for them. So that really kind of is the end of my focus in my presentation on the GDTR as well as ThinkWell. I want to first of all thank each and every one of you, all of our supporters, our donors, and particularly our walkers for all that you do on behalf of Komen. I very much appreciate all of your contributions to Komen's mission. I hope I could have just shared with you a few stories of the students that have benefited tremendously. I also imbue in them a responsibility also to become and to stay a part of the Komen activities. So again, thank you for helping to train our next generation of scientists through the GDTR and also in helping us to reach those hard-to-reach communities through our ThinkWell program here in Alabama. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meneses. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to use the chat box to send those questions my way. And again, this is David. I'm one of the research grants managers at Komen. And so I will be going through some of these questions and asking them to our speaker. And so I guess one of the first questions that has kind of come in are, what are some of the, or what makes it difficult to reach some of these areas, whether it be urban or whether it be rural America, for being able to address these disparities? Why is some of these neighborhoods or some of these areas harder to reach than others?
Well, it's a great question. There are cultural reasons. Oftentimes in a rural community, they may or may not have much trust in people who come from the outside, and they think outside is outside of their particular rural community. And so that's where we, before we even begin a program, we contact the community leaders, those who are really the ones that are trusted within the community. We ask them if this is an important or a topic that they would be interested in, and for the most part, the community leaders have said yes. We also engage them in, what kind of program would you like to have? What is it best? Is it more discussion? Is it less, lecture? Are there better handouts? And then we also work with the community leaders to find and identify a program. So that one, it would be one. And I think once we gain trust, people don't always work on our own time schedule. And I think that that's probably the most important in learning about community engagement. Even in our urban communities here, there are quite a few very, very large African-American churches. And you really have to get to know what the culture is of that faith-based community as well as their understanding of, their community and their parish. And so, these just don't happen. I mean, I could do a course for our students and just deliver it, but these really take probably several months, if not almost a year, for us to engage. Once we do, the word gets out, and even neighboring counties have asked us to also participate. I shared with you we had 17 counties, but there were really only at the very outset 7 to 8 that we had recommended for participating, but we had quite a few more.
Great, which I guess is a good segue into another question that came up, and that is, do you think this ThinkWell program can be implemented in other areas or other communities or other states even, for that matter?
Appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. One of the focus that we have in terms of looking at our work is how can this be modified, adapted, and disseminated for others. And so I am a really big proponent of that. We have actually received other calls from other communities that if we could bring the information to them. We have received texts and emails from other universities because we really see this and the other part that I think has been phenomenal is that the number of co-survivors who attend, because it's amazing when you work with a hard-to-reach community and you're able to actually access and they welcome you, they're sometimes really amazed that healthy living applies to everyone. And when we're looking at our cancer survivors increasing over the years and they're living longer, they're also going to be living, in aging. And aging also has its own requisite changes that occur in terms of cognitive changes. So yeah, absolutely. We really try to, from the program itself, start with these modules. We always update those. We take the information and feedback from all of the communities that we have participated with us to make it better. We put it on the web. Tip sheets. We try and really use lots and lots of different media to reach people.
Great, and I guess another question, in comparing the different minority populations that are often associated with disparities, in including that, rural Americans that are often at times at a disadvantage as well, are there any similar or similarities between those groups or common challenges that you see within those groups as you address these disparities, whether it be more urban-based or whether it be more rural-based?
Well, I have to say, yes, here in Alabama, 67 counties are rural. I also used to be in the state of Florida, where surprisingly they're same 67 counties. But I do believe, again, some of those first issues. And I'll give you an example. You know, when we do our work, it just doesn't occur in pink October. It occurs all year round. And a week and a half ago, we were in a northwest county here in the state of Alabama. And this is a predominantly rural, it is also agricultural. It is not a predominantly African-American rural county. And so when we first started working with the nurse practitioner who was there and the primary care physician, they were just very happy for us to come, but we really needed to engage the community. And doors weren't really readily opened, even though we had a community person. So actually one of our faculty here at UAB was from that region, and so we asked if he could participate with us, and because he's very known widely within that community, he actually did the door opening, and that's where others then said, okay, if he says it's okay, then we think you're probably will be very useful, and we delivered that program a week and a half ago on Saturday. We had about 70 people there, and it was really phenomenal. It is hard to reach Komen community. It's the very first time that we were able to actually be in that community. So we're hoping that there'll be additional ones in the future, and that we had some good outcomes. And in terms of a relationship, you have to establish that relationship.
Great, and I guess another question related to the GTDR program. What are your what are your big goals and aspirations? What you hope that the students that you're training through the GTDR, what do you hope that they're able to accomplish and hopefully do as they get out independently and as they graduate and move on to the next stages in life?
Well, I am so happy with our students, and I was just delighted because in nursing, for the most part, nurses, and we've really kind of changed our program in nursing so that we have our students work full-time, go to school full-time, and work directly with a senior scientist who has and be able to engage with interdisciplinary scientists. So one of our biggest strengths here at UAB is that we've got a cadre of scientists who are engaged in cancer survivorship research. So that's number one. Number two then is our students become part of an interdisciplinary team, and they see that the predoctoral training and the graduate training is great, but it's really great for them to move on and get postdoctoral training so that they continue to arm themselves with more research skills in their toolbox. So that's kind of moving them along for, to the next phase of career development, and using their passion and their work with cancer and survivorship, breast cancer and survivorship, to really develop their teams and develop their teams in different parts of the country. So that to me is really, really important. But I think because we also really stress the importance, so you've been a recipient, but at the same time you also have a responsibility. Recipients without responsibility doesn't really make doesn't leverage our future. So they're really thrilled. They love the kinds of experiences that they have here in Alabama, and particularly with our local Komen affiliate. I hope that answered your question.
No, that did great. That did great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Meneses, for the joining us and doing this Sidewalks to Science webinar, which is what we are titling this 3-day webinar now, moving forward. So thank you again for your time on this, and again, I thank you for all the individuals that joined us on this webinar. We will get this recording up shortly. Again, any questions that came in that were not able to be answered live on the webinar, I will send to our speaker to answer. I do appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to join us on this webinar, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.